than these geographically close friendships. And that's on page 227. And basically, it's the top of page 227. The whole idea that when folks move apart, go off to college, whatever, individuals must invest more time and energy in long-distance friendships. Yeah. Individuals cannot as easily engage in frequent talk. Yeah. Individuals cannot as readily provide emotional and instrumental support. Yeah. Yeah. That's hard to do when, you know, somebody lives in Casey and somebody else lives in California or something like that. But again, that's old. That's old. Now, things have changed. That's the old perspective. This is all old research, and we must realize that now there are so many more channels through CMC that we can use to initiate friendships, to maintain friendships, etc., etc. So all this old view is just old hat. Yeah, so we need to move forward. Also, the old view, they talked about this notion of replacement. This is toward the bottom of page 227. Another way of conceptualizing friendship that portrays friendship as fragile is a replacement view of friendship. And that is basically as we, I'm getting an email here, basically as we, or a text, that's a text. Basically, that was from President Obama saying, I'm doing an excellent job with this particular lecture. I'm sure the FBI or the NSA or something, I'm sure they're watching, they're everywhere. So basically, the old idea was you move away, you're no longer geographically close, and so you replace old friends with new friends who are geographically close. Okay, I mean, it still happens, obviously. Another perspective here is that sort of linear sense of friendship, both the development and the deterioration. And that basically is this notion that we tend to think, or old perspectives of friendship tended to say, okay, friendships move along, here's first stage, second stage, third stage, whatever, and then you're geographically separated, you start deteriorating, you know, here's the first stage of deterioration, so just this linear perspective. But that is old, and that needs to be replaced, they say, with more of a dialectical point of view. So next slide, 6 here, is we need to challenge this old view. We need to challenge the whole relational chain, or challenge the whole linear thing. And what they have here is the relational change process. So it's not this sort of linear relational development, you know, going through steps. It's more it's more complicated than that. You might not friendships. You know, contemporary friendships are not as stable as perhaps other friendships. Well, all sort of depends. But this idea basically is, okay, you might move away, not see somebody for 10 years, and then via Facebook or something like that, you reconnect with somebody, and then you can have a wonderful friendship. So it's not this linear thing. You know, you might have close friendship, it might die for a while, and then it might be resurrected. So that's the whole idea. So it's not this linear process. So we need to think in terms of this relational change process, not relational development per se. And this is the same thing with the whole dialectical thinking. We just need to get away from this linear mode of saying. So nothing, friendship nowadays is not this sort of set, easy, orderly sort of way. And they're doing, I mean, this is also research, right? You know, friendship research sort of says, okay, this is how people get together as friends. And then so a lot of the research is creates this very linear perspective of how all this works. And they're simply saying that it's not that easy. And then, of course, I've already mentioned these terms, but they offer here on the middle of page 228 yet more abbreviations, more jargon for your entire family's enjoyment. and that is LD and CG. LD is, guess what? Long distance, and GC is geographical closeness. So, and that's some of the things that we're thinking about when we think about the whole idea of CMC and friendship theory. And that last bit on dialectical theory, I think, is really, really important. So again, if you're paying attention to the things that I say are very, very important, and highlighting it just because it's fun, even though you don't have any exams or quizzes. This is what it says. In dialectics theory, the element of totality states that both internal and external forces relate to whether a relationship develops or deteriorates. The advent of computer-mediated communication has been an external force that has transformed how friendships are conducted. And so they go on to the idea, the next step, the next section there, of this whole idea of friendship is flexible. So we really need to, our CMC has transformed the nature of friendship. That's what they are saying. So, next slide, slide 7. Please be my flexible BFF. And that's pretty flexible. I can't do that. I do yoga, but I'm not very flexible at all. I can touch my toes, and I'm pretty impressed with myself. Okay, 8, slide 8. Flexible ideas here, the whole idea of flexible friendship. What do we have here? So basically, in a nutshell, which I love to say, just because we move away, just because we are long distant and not geographically close, that does not mean that a friendship will obviously deteriorate, as old theories of friendship might have said. So they're not doomed. So there's a few little areas here that some of the research focuses on. And basically, the big findings here are friendship maintenance behaviors. You know, folks use some of the same basic behaviors in face-to-face communication as well as CMC. So long-distance friendships through things like CMC, you're still doing sort of the same friendship maintenance, self-disclosing things, giving relational support, you know, talking about your day, you know, disclosing problems that you might have, reassuring one another that the friendship is a good friendship, etc., etc., etc. The next thing, determining relations, development patterns, and interpretations of friendships as fragile or flexible. Oftentimes, basically what they're saying here is how individuals interpret relationships and what they use can determine the whole nature of the relationship. So if you are open to seeing the very nature of friendship as flexible, you're sort of better off. They basically say that those folks who sort of refuse to use CMC and have this sort of old hat view that friendship is indeed fragile, then they are more or less likely to continue a friendship if you are in a long distance situation. They basically say those folks should start using CMC more. And then the final thing, basically, when they move to just talking about long-distance friendships generally, they have quite a few pretty interesting ideas here. And I'm moving on to the next slide, so we're at slide 9 here. So when it comes to just this larger notion of flexibility, what are the findings? What are the larger ideas? And some of this is sort of a repeat because the chapter sort of repeats itself here and there. But basically, if you're on, I'm on the top of page 230 right now. Basically, this idea that folks maintain geographical close friendships and long-distance friendships generally the same way. So that's sort of the idea. So we just sort of use CMC in ways that we have often used face-to-face communication. Next thing, Um, though, even though that's the case, the research does indicate that geographical distance is still a big reason that friendships die and go to friendship heaven. And that's also where the authors sort of imply or more explicitly say, if only folks use CMC, then that relationship would have never died. Get on Facebook, get on Twitter, email somebody, text somebody, then all will be well. And then the next sort of thing that the book says is long-distance friends seem to see friendship as more flexible and non-linear, which makes sense because you sort of have to see things that way. So they talk about notions of relational and friendship commitment and the sense of closeness. But basically, folks who are using CMC to maintain friendships tend to have a much more sort of different perspective of the nature of friendships than folks who are maintaining friendships in a more of a only sort of face-to-face situation. There's a summary on page 232 that is very, very good, and basically says all the things that these authors have been saying for the last several pages. And again, it's all about offering and arguing for a little bit this larger notion of seeing friendship not as this fragile, linear, old hat thing, but much more of a dialectical, flexible, dynamic thing. And so on page 232, the summary. And again, this is another thing that very, very important. I would highlight this if you want to highlight this. I would actually memorize this entire paragraph and then share it with all your friends through Twitter. So, this is what it says. Therefore, these studies all illustrate that friendships are more flexible than fragile and help to illustrate what aspects of interpersonal relating are tied tightly to face-to-face communication, while others can be enacted through more varied means. Greater numbers of communication channels, such as those that are computer-mediated, have increased individuals' abilities to continue relationships that are conducted over distance. This is not rocket science. It's sort of no-brainer stuff, but still. These studies illustrate how individuals maintain relationships over distance both through email and other channels, having greater opportunities to communicate in manners besides face-to-face supports a conceptualization of friendship as flexible rather than fragile and suggests that friendships are definitely not doomed to end due to geographical separation. Johnson, Wittenberg et al., blah, 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 illustrate how friendships, both geographically close and long distance, often exhibit nonlinear relational development patterns where an increase or decrease in geographic distance is a transition that the relationship must navigate. And then you can use CMC channels to do that navigation. So basically, CMC is good for maintaining friendships. That's basically the thesis of the entire chapter. Whoa! Okay. So, the next bit of what they do in this particular chapter is saying what are the various channels or the specific channels, the various means that folks use, particularly in long-distance friendships, to maintain their friendships. So I'm now on slide 10. One of the things that I think is pretty interesting here, before they get into these specific different avenues or mediums or channels, whatever you want to call them, is offer this equity theory. And I'm on the bottom of page 232. And basically we can, geographic distance has been seen as negative for relationships because of the increased cost associated with a lack of face-to-face contact. Yeah, no kidding. So CMC can decrease that cost and increase the benefits. And that's the whole idea of equity theory. So as Stevie Wonder said, I just called to say I love you.